In a distant corner of the galaxy, humanity had taken its first steps toward becoming part of something greater. For decades, Earth's people lived in fear of the unknown, wondering if alien civilizations would bring peace or destruction. But then came the Valorans, tall, graceful beings with shimmering skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. They were explorers, scientists, and philosophers, dedicated to sharing knowledge rather than conquering worlds. Humanity embraced them as allies, and together they built bridges between stars. Jake Robinson was one of many who admired the Valorans. A skilled pilot in Earth's defense fleet, he often worked alongside their engineers and diplomats. He'd grown close to them over the years, learning about their culture and marveling at their technology. The Valorans weren't just partners, they were friends. Or so Jake thought. One day, everything changed. News spread across Earth like wildfire. The Galactic War Council, the governing body overseeing countless planets and species, had declared war on the Valorans. The Council accused them of secretly developing weapons capable of destroying entire solar systems. No proof was offered, no trial held. Instead, fleets of warships descended upon the Valoran homeworld without warning. Jake watched it all unfold from the bridge of his ship, stationed near the edge of human-controlled space. His hands gripped the controls tightly as live footage streamed in. Explosions lit up the horizon of the once beautiful planet, sending plumes of smoke billowing into the atmosphere. Cities crumbled under relentless bombardment, and thousands of Valorans perished in moments. Their screams echoed through the transmissions, chilling everyone who heard them. Earth's leaders scrambled to respond, but the message from the Council was clear: stay out of this. Any interference would be seen as an act of war. Fear gripped the planet. What could humanity do against such overwhelming power? Many argued that survival meant silence. Others, however, couldn't stomach the betrayal. Among them was Emily Dawson, a strategist who had spent years working with the Valorans. She refused to believe the lies spewing from the Council's propaganda machines. "They're innocent," Emily muttered to herself late one night, staring at reports detailing the attack. Her office was dimly lit, cluttered with papers and holographic displays. There's no way the Valorans would break the treaties. Not after everything we've built together. Determined to act, Emily reached out to Jake. She knew he shared her anger and frustration. When she called him, his face appeared on her screen, tired but sharp-eyed. "Jake," she began, leaning forward, "we can't let this stand. If we don't do something, who will?" Jake hesitated. He wanted justice for the Valorans, but the odds seemed impossible. Still, Emily's words struck a chord deep within him. The Valorans had trusted humanity, and humanity had failed them. Someone needed to fight back. "What do you have in mind?" he asked finally, his voice low but resolute. Emily smiled faintly. "We gather whoever we can, people who still believe in doing what's right, and we hit the Council where it hurts. We expose the truth." It wasn't much of a plan, but it was a start. As Jake ended the call, he felt a spark of hope ignite inside him. The road ahead would be dangerous, perhaps even suicidal, but one thing was certain: Earth's defenders wouldn't go down without a fight. The days following the destruction of the Valoran homeworld were filled with tension and fear. Earth's leaders remained silent, choosing to avoid conflict rather than challenge the Galactic War Council. Many citizens felt betrayed, not just by the Council, but by their own government. Protests erupted in cities across the globe, demanding action. Yet for every voice calling for justice, there were others urging caution. The divide grew wider with each passing day. Emily Dawson knew time was running out. If no one stepped forward, the truth about the Valorans would be buried forever. She spent hours poring over data, searching for anything that could prove the Council's accusations were lies. Her small apartment became a makeshift command center, cluttered with screens displaying reports, maps, and intercepted communications. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Every moment mattered. Jake Robinson visited her often, bringing updates from his contacts within Earth's defense fleet. Though officially retired, Jake still had friends in high places, people who shared his anger and frustration. Together, he and Emily began piecing together a plan. It wasn't easy. Resources were scarce, and trust was even harder to come by. But they weren't alone. One evening, as Emily sifted through files, Jake introduced her to someone new. Ryan Carter, a wiry man in his early 30s with sharp eyes and grease-stained hands. Ryan was an engineer known for his ability to fix anything. He'd worked on several joint projects with the Valorans and considered them family. When Jake approached him about joining their cause, Ryan didn't hesitate. "I've got nothing left to lose," Ryan said simply, taking a seat at Emily's cluttered table. "If you're serious about hitting back, count me in." With Ryan on board, the group began expanding their network. They recruited Samantha Lewis, a fearless fighter pilot with a reputation for taking risks. Samantha had lost friends during the Council's attack and was eager for revenge. Then there was Daniel Ford, a former diplomat turned rebel leader. Daniel had once negotiated trade agreements between Earth and the Valorans. His calm demeanor balanced out the fiery personalities of the others. Each member brought something valuable to the team. Ryan tinkered with old ships salvaged from scrapyards, upgrading engines and weapons. Samantha trained tirelessly in flight simulators, preparing for battles yet to come. Daniel reached out to allies among Earth's underground networks, gathering intelligence and supplies. Meanwhile, Emily coordinated their efforts, ensuring everyone stayed focused on the bigger picture. Despite their progress, doubts lingered. One night, after a long meeting, Jake pulled Emily aside. "Are we doing the right thing?" he asked quietly. The weight of leadership rested heavily on his shoulders. "We're talking about going up against the most powerful force in the galaxy. What if we fail?" Emily placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Failure isn't an option," she replied firmly. "If we don't try, the Council wins. And if they win, what happens next? More betrayals. More innocent lives destroyed. We owe it to the Valorans to fight." Her words struck a chord. Jake nodded, though uncertainty still lingered in his eyes. He returned to the group, determined to push forward. Over the next few days, they finalized their plans. Their first mission would target a Council supply depot, a risky move, but necessary to gather resources and send a message. As the team prepared for battle, news spread of another massacre. This time, a smaller Valoran colony had been wiped out. The Council claimed it was retaliation for harboring fugitives, but the rebels knew better. It was a calculated effort to erase any trace of the Valorans' existence. Fueled by outrage, the group doubled down on their preparations. For Jake, Emily, and the others, this wasn't just about revenge. It was about honor. Humanity had abandoned its allies once before. They wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The rebels worked around the clock, driven by anger and determination. Their makeshift base was hidden deep in an abandoned industrial zone on Earth's outskirts. Old warehouses surrounded them, rusting and forgotten, providing perfect cover. Inside one of these buildings, Ryan Carter toiled away, surrounded by tools, wires, and half-dismantled ship parts. The air smelled of oil and burning metal, but Ryan didn't mind. This was his element. Jake Robinson walked into the workshop, ducking under a low-hanging beam. "How's it coming?" he asked, eyeing the battered ships scattered around the room. Most were outdated models, relics from Earth's early space missions, but Ryan had a gift for making something out of nothing. "Almost ready," Ryan replied without looking up. His hands moved quickly, attaching a new engine component to one of the ships. "These old birds won't win any beauty contests, but they'll fly. And they'll fight." Jake nodded, impressed despite himself. With Ryan's upgrades, the fleet might actually stand a chance against the Council's superior technology. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were rushing into danger blindfolded. The Council's forces were vast, well-trained, and ruthless. What could a handful of rebels do? Samantha Lewis entered the workshop, her boots clanking against the concrete floor. She carried a tablet filled with flight simulations and tactical maps. "We've got a problem," she said bluntly, tossing the device onto a nearby table. "The supply depot we're targeting. It's better defended than we thought." Emily Dawson joined them moments later, her expression grim. "The Council's stepped up security everywhere," she explained. "They know someone's going to retaliate. We need to be smarter about this." For hours, the group debated their options. Samantha suggested hitting multiple targets at once to spread the Council's forces thin. Daniel Ford disagreed, arguing that splitting their small team would be suicide. In the end, they decided to stick with the original plan but add a diversion, a fake attack on a nearby outpost, to draw attention away from the real mission. As preparations continued, tensions ran high. Everyone felt the pressure of what lay ahead. Samantha spent hours practicing maneuvers in a simulator, pushing herself harder than ever before. Ryan barely slept, fine-tuning every detail of their ships. Even Daniel, who usually remained calm, snapped at Jake during one heated argument over strategy. Despite the stress, there were moments of unity. One evening, the group gathered around a small fire outside the workshop. The night sky stretched above them, dotted with stars. For a brief moment, they allowed themselves to forget the war and simply talk. Ryan joked about his first attempt at fixing a ship, which ended with him accidentally launching it into a wall. Samantha laughed so hard she nearly fell off her chair. Even Jake cracked a smile, though his thoughts soon drifted back to the Valorans. "We're doing the right thing," Emily said softly, breaking the silence. "No matter how hard it gets, remember why we started this." Her words resonated with everyone. They weren't just fighting for revenge or pride. They were fighting for justice. The Valorans had trusted humanity, and humanity had failed them. Now it was time to prove that not all humans were cowards. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The rebels loaded into their ships, hearts pounding with anticipation. Ryan gave each vessel one last check, muttering to himself as he tightened bolts and adjusted controls. Samantha climbed into her cockpit, running through pre-flight checks with practiced ease. Jake stood at the center of the group, giving final instructions. "Stay sharp," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "This is our first strike. Let's make it count." As the engines roared to life, the rebels took off, disappearing into the darkness of space. Ahead of them lay danger, uncertainty, and the possibility of failure, but also hope. For the first time in weeks, they felt alive, not as individuals, but as a team united by purpose. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The rebels' ships moved silently through the void of space, their engines running at minimal power to avoid detection. Inside each cockpit, the tension was palpable. Samantha Lewis gripped her controls tightly, her eyes scanning the darkness ahead. Jake Robinson sat in the lead ship, his mind racing with possibilities. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. Success or failure would hinge on what happened next. As they approached the Council's supply depot, the diversion team sprang into action. Two smaller ships broke off from the main group, heading toward a nearby outpost. Their mission was simple: create chaos. Firing harmless but loud bursts of energy, they drew the attention of the outpost's defenses. Alarms blared, and patrol ships scrambled to intercept the intruders. The ruse worked perfectly, leaving the supply depot vulnerable. Back at the main target, Ryan Carter monitored the situation from his console. Though he wasn't piloting a ship, his role was critical. He guided the others remotely, feeding them real-time updates on enemy movements. "You're clear," he said over the comms, his voice calm but urgent. "No patrols within range. Go now." Samantha didn't hesitate. She swooped in low, skimming the surface of an asteroid field to stay hidden until the last second. Her ship unleashed a barrage of missiles, striking the depot's outer defenses. Explosions lit up the area, sending shards of metal spinning into space. The others followed her lead, targeting key structures and disabling communications arrays. For a few chaotic minutes, everything went according to plan. But then, trouble struck. A squadron of Council fighters appeared out of nowhere, responding faster than expected. Jake cursed under his breath as red warning lights flashed across his dashboard. "We've got company," he shouted over the comms. "Everyone fall back to extraction point." Samantha twisted her ship into a tight spiral, narrowly avoiding a volley of enemy fire. Her heart raced as she lined up another shot, taking out one of the pursuing fighters with precision. "Not done yet," she snapped, refusing to retreat until she'd inflicted maximum damage. Meanwhile, Daniel Ford worked frantically to cover their escape. From his position aboard a support vessel, he deployed decoys, small drones designed to mimic the rebel ships. The Council fighters took the bait, splitting their forces and giving the rebels precious seconds to regroup. But even with these efforts, the mission came at a cost. One of the smaller ships, piloted by a young recruit named Alex, wasn't fast enough to evade the enemy. A direct hit tore through its hull, sending it spiraling out of control. Jake watched helplessly as the ship exploded in a burst of light. 2 lives lost in an instant. "Pull back." Emily Dawson's voice cut through the comms, sharp and commanding. "We can't afford to lose anyone else." Reluctantly, the rebels disengage, retreating into the safety of the asteroid field. As they regrouped, the weight of their losses settled heavily on everyone. They had succeeded in damaging the depot, but victory felt hollow. Alex's death reminded them all of the stakes they faced. Back at the base, the mood was somber. Ryan immediately began repairs on the damaged ships, while Emily reviewed the mission footage, searching for ways to improve their tactics. Jake stood apart from the group, staring at the floor. Guilt gnawed at him. He had promised to bring everyone home safely, and he had failed. "We'll get better," Samantha said, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft but firm. "Next time, we'll be smarter, faster, stronger." Jake nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in his eyes. They had struck a blow against the Council, but the war was far from over. For now, all they could do was honor the fallen and prepare for whatever came next. The rebels returned to their hidden base, battered but alive. The damage to their ships was extensive, and the loss of Alex weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Ryan Carter worked tirelessly in the dimly lit workshop, his hands moving quickly as he patched up scorched hulls and replaced damaged components. Sparks flew from his tools, illuminating the grim expressions of those around him. No one spoke much. The weight of failure hung thick in the air. Emily Dawson sat at a cluttered desk nearby, reviewing the data they had gathered during the raid. She sifted through intercepted transmissions and analyzed fragments of destroyed Council equipment. Her brow furrowed as she pieced together patterns in the information. Something about the Council's actions didn't add up. Why had they attacked the Valorans so suddenly? What were they hiding? "Jake," Emily called out, her voice cutting through the silence. Jake Robinson turned from where he stood near the wall, lost in thought. He walked over, pulling up a chair beside her. On the screen in front of them was a map of recent Council activity, supply routes, troop movements, and attack coordinates. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a cluster of red markers. "Every target they've hit recently is close to Valoran territory. Too close." Jake leaned forward, studying the map. "You think they're searching for something?" he asked. "Not just searching," Emily replied. "They're desperate. Whatever the Valorans had, it scared the Council enough to risk war." Her words sparked an idea. If the Council was after something specific, that meant the Valorans must have left clues behind, something the rebels could use against them. But where to start looking? The answer came unexpectedly when Ryan stumbled upon a fragment of alien tech embedded in one of the damaged ships. It wasn't Council-made. "This is Valoran," Ryan announced, holding up the small device. Its surface shimmered faintly, etched with intricate symbols. "Must have been part of the debris we picked up during the raid." Emily took the device carefully, examining it under a light. "If we can decode this, it might tell us what the Council's really after." Ryan got to work immediately, connecting the device to a makeshift interface. Hours passed as lines of code scrolled across the screens. Finally, the device emitted a soft hum, projecting a holographic image into the air. It showed schematics, blueprints for some kind of ancient machine. The design was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. "It's a weapon," Samantha Lewis guessed, leaning in for a closer look. Her tone was skeptical. "Or maybe a shield. Either way, it's big." "No," Emily corrected, her eyes scanning the details. "It's not a weapon or a shield. It's a key, a tool capable of unlocking massive amounts of energy, enough to reshape entire star systems." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council hadn't attacked the Valorans because they broke treaties. They attacked because they wanted control over this technology. And if they succeeded, no one would be safe. "We need to get ahead of them," Jake said finally, breaking the quiet. His voice was firm, though his hands clenched into fists. "If we can find whatever this thing unlocks before they do, we might have a chance." But finding it wouldn't be easy. The blueprints offered little context beyond vague references to a hidden sanctuary. Daniel Ford suggested reaching out to surviving Valorans who might know more. "There are refugees scattered across the galaxy," he explained. "Some might still trust us enough to help." With no better options, the group agreed to split their efforts. Ryan would continue analyzing the device, while Emily and Daniel searched for leads among the Valorant survivors. Jake and Samantha focused on upgrading their fleet, knowing they'd need every advantage they could get. As they worked, the rebellion grew stronger, not just in numbers, but in resolve. Each setback only fueled their determination. They were fighting for more than revenge now. They were fighting for survival, for humanity, for the Valorans, and for anyone else the Council sought to crush. And somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, lay the truth that could turn the tide of the war. The rebels' search for answers led them to a remote nebula, far from the Council's reach. According to fragmented records salvaged from the Valoran archives, this region of space held secrets, places even the Galactic War Council feared to tread. Jake Robinson stared out the viewport of his ship as they entered the swirling clouds of gas and dust. The colors shifted around them, glowing faintly in hues of blue and purple. It was beautiful but eerie, like stepping into another world. Ryan Carter had traced a faint signal emanating from deep within the nebula. "It's weak, but it matches the frequency of that device we found," he explained over the comms. His voice carried a mix of excitement and caution. "Could be a lead." As they ventured further, the ship's sensors picked up something unusual. A massive structure partially hidden by the dense gas. Emily Dawson studied the readings closely, her eyes narrowing. "That's no natural formation," she said. "It's artificial. Ancient, but intact." Samantha Lewis guided her ship closer, scanning the area for threats. "No signs of life or patrols," she reported. "Whatever this place is, it's been abandoned for a long time." The structure turned out to be a derelict station, its surface covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly under their ship lights. Docking bays yawned open like empty mouths, inviting them inside. Jake hesitated before giving the order to land. Something about the place felt wrong, but they didn't have a choice. Time was running out. Once inside, the team split up to explore. Ryan and Daniel Ford headed toward what appeared to be a central control room, while Jake, Emily, and Samantha investigated nearby chambers. The air was cold and stale, filled with the hum of dormant machinery. Walls lined with alien script seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. In one chamber, Emily discovered a vault-like door sealed shut. She ran her hands over the surface, tracing the grooves of the symbols. "This has to be it," she murmured. "Whatever the Valorans were protecting, it's here." Back in the control room, Ryan worked frantically to reactivate the station's systems. Dust-covered consoles flickered to life under his touch, displaying streams of data in languages none of them could read. "I need more time," he muttered, typing furiously. Suddenly, the floor trembled beneath their feet. Alarms blared, echoing through the corridors. "What did you do?" Jake demanded over the comms. his voice tense. "I didn't do anything," Ryan shot back. "Something else is powering up." Before anyone could react, the vault door Emily had been examining slid open with a hiss. Bright light spilled out, illuminating the chamber. Inside stood a pedestal holding a crystalline object, pulsing with energy. Emily approached cautiously, her breath catching in her throat. This was it, the key to unlocking the ancient technology. But their discovery came at a cost. Moments later, the station shook violently again. Warning messages flashed across Ryan's screens. "We triggered some kind of defense system," he shouted. "We need to leave. Now." Samantha radioed in, her voice urgent. "Enemy ships incoming. The Council must have tracked us here." Panic surged through the group, but there was no time to waste. Jake grabbed the crystal from the pedestal, tucking it safely into a protective case. "Fall back to the ships," he ordered. "Move." They raced through the twisting corridors, dodging falling debris as the station began to collapse around them. By the time they reached their vessels, Council fighters were already closing in. Samantha launched her ship first, drawing fire to cover the others. Jake followed close behind, clutching the crystal tightly. As they escaped into the nebula's depths, the station exploded in a brilliant burst of light, vanishing forever. Though battered and bruised, the rebels had succeeded. They now held the key to defeating the Council, but using it would come at a price, and the galaxy would never be the same. Back at their hidden base, the rebels gathered around a makeshift table to examine the crystal they had retrieved from the ancient station. Its surface shimmered faintly, pulsing with an inner light that seemed almost alive. Ryan Carter adjusted his tools carefully, connecting the crystal to a portable interface. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery and the occasional beep of data streaming across the screens. "This thing is incredible," Ryan muttered, his eyes glued to the display. "It's not just a key. It's like a map, a code, and a power source all rolled into one." Emily Dawson leaned in closer, studying the information as it unfolded. Her mind raced through possibilities. If they could unlock the secrets of the crystal, they might gain access to technology powerful enough to challenge the Council. But she also knew that such power came with risks. "We need to be careful," she said firmly. "If the Council wanted this badly enough to destroy the Valorans, we can't let them get their hands on it." Jake Robinson nodded, though his expression remained troubled. He trusted Emily's judgment, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with forces far beyond their understanding. "How do we use it?" he asked. "And what happens if something goes wrong?" Ryan hesitated before answering. "From what I can tell, the crystal needs to connect with a specific location, a kind of activation site. Once it's there, it'll release massive amounts of energy, enough to disable any nearby fleet, or destroy us along with it," Samantha Lewis added grimly. She crossed her arms, her sharp gaze fixed on the glowing object. "Are we really willing to gamble everything on this?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Tension simmered among the group. For weeks, they had fought together, built together, and mourned together. Now, faced with their most dangerous mission yet, cracks began to form. Daniel Ford spoke up first, his calm voice cutting through the unease. "We can't keep running forever," he said. "If we don't take this chance, the Council wins. Is that what we want? To live under their rule, knowing we could have done something." His words struck a chord, but not everyone agreed. Samantha argued for caution, warning that rushing into action without a solid plan would only lead to disaster. Jake found himself caught in the middle, torn between the need for boldness and the fear of losing more lives. The debate grew heated until Emily stepped in. "Enough," she said sharply, her tone leaving no room for argument. "We're wasting time arguing when we should be preparing. Whether we like it or not, this crystal is our best shot. Let's focus on making sure we survive long enough to use it." Her words settled over the group, bringing a fragile sense of unity. They spent the next few days refining their strategy. Ryan worked tirelessly to decipher the crystal's final secrets, pinpointing the activation site, A remote moon orbiting a dying star. Samantha trained relentlessly in flight simulators, perfecting every maneuver she might need during the upcoming battle. Meanwhile, Jake coordinated with Daniel to gather intelligence on the Council's movements. But even as they prepared, danger crept closer. Unbeknownst to them, a spy had infiltrated their ranks, a mole feeding information to the Council. Late one night, as the team reviewed their plans, a transmission slipped out, revealing their location. By morning, the Council's forces were closing in. Alarms blared throughout the base as patrol ships appeared on the horizon. Panic spread quickly, but Jake's voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone to your ships," he shouted. "We fight, or we die trying." As the rebels scrambled to defend themselves, the weight of their situation hit hard. Betrayal had found them again, but this time, they were ready. With the crystal secured aboard Jake's ship, they launched into space, determined to face whatever lay ahead. Their journey was far from over, and the cost of failure loomed larger than ever. The rebel ships burst out of the atmosphere just as the Council's forces descended upon their base. Explosions lit up the horizon behind them, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Jake Robinson clenched his teeth as he watched their sanctuary crumble in his rearview monitor. It was gone. Everything they had built reduced to ashes in moments. But there was no time to grieve. Ahead of them lay open space, and with it, a slim chance at survival. Samantha Lewis took the lead, her fighter darting ahead to scout for threats. "We've got company," she warned over the comms. A squadron of Council warships loomed in the distance, their massive hulls blocking out the stars. Laser fire erupted from their cannons, forcing the rebels to scatter. Samantha twisted her ship into a tight spiral, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts. "They're faster than us," she muttered under her breath. "But not smarter." Ryan Carter's voice crackled over the comms. "I've rerouted all available power to our engines," he said. "We can outrun them, but we'll need cover." "On it," Jake replied, banking his ship sharply to draw enemy fire. His vessel shuddered under the impact of incoming shots, alarms blaring in the cockpit. He gritted his teeth and held steady, knowing that every second counted. The crystal, the key to everything, was secured aboard his ship. If they lost it now, all hope would be lost. Daniel Ford coordinated the group's movements from his support vessel, deploying decoys and jamming signals to confuse the Council's targeting systems. "Keep moving," he urged. "Don't let them pin you down." Despite the chaos, the rebels fought with precision. Samantha unleashed a volley of missiles, taking out one of the Council fighters with a direct hit. Her voice came through the comms, sharp and determined. "Got one. Keep pushing." Emily Dawson stayed close to Jake's ship, her own vessel acting as a shield against enemy fire. She glanced at the glowing crystal resting in its protective case on the dashboard. Its faint pulse seemed to grow stronger, as if responding to the intensity of the battle around them. "We're running out of time," she said. "If we don't reach the activation site soon, this won't matter." The Council's forces pressed harder, their numbers overwhelming. Just when it seemed like escape was impossible, Ryan's modifications paid off. The rebel ships surged forward, their engines roaring with newfound speed. One by one, they broke free of the enemy's grasp, disappearing into the vastness of space. But the victory was short-lived. As they regrouped near the edge of the system, Jake called for a status update. Samantha reported minor damage to her ship, while Daniel confirmed his decoys had worked. Most of the Council's fleet had been lured away. Yet Emily's voice carried a note of unease. "We're not alone," she said. "2 Council cruisers are still tracking us." Jake cursed under his breath. They couldn't afford another fight. Not now. The activation site was close, but so was the Council. He made a decision. "Ryan, how long until we reach the moon?" he asked. 10 minutes if we push hard," Ryan replied. "Then we push hard," Jake said. "Everyone, stay close. We're finishing this." The final stretch was brutal. The Council cruisers launched wave after wave of fighters, forcing the rebels to weave and dodge through a storm of laser fire. Jake's ship took heavy damage, smoke filling the cockpit as alarms screamed in his ears. Still, he refused to falter. The crystal pulsed brighter now, its energy spilling out in waves. They were close. When they finally reached the moon, the rebels wasted no time. Ryan guided them to the activation site, a crater filled with ancient machinery that hummed to life as they approached. Jake carried the crystal to the center of the array, placing it carefully into a slot designed specifically for it. The ground trembled as the device powered up, releasing a surge of energy that spread outward in a dazzling wave. The Council's ships were caught in the blast, their systems fried instantly. For miles around, nothing remained functional. The rebels watched in awe as the tide of the war shifted before their eyes. It wasn't over, but for the first time, they had struck a real blow against the Council. And they weren't done yet. The aftermath of the energy pulse left the rebels in stunned silence. Their ships floated in the shadow of the moon, their systems flickering back to life one by one. The Council's fleet was gone, disabled, scattered, and powerless. For the first time in what felt like forever, the galaxy seemed quiet. Jake Robinson stared out the viewport, his hands gripping the controls tightly. His knuckles were white, but his breathing slowly steadied. They had done it. Against all odds, they had struck a blow that even the mighty Galactic War Council couldn't ignore. Emily Dawson sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the glowing crystal now resting inert in its case. Its light had dimmed, almost as if it had spent itself completely. "It worked," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "We actually did it." But celebration wasn't an option, not yet. The rebels knew this victory was only temporary. The Council would recover, regroup, and come back stronger than ever. Still, the pulse had bought them something invaluable. Time. Time to rebuild, to rally support, and to expose the truth about the Council's crimes. Dangleford broke the silence over the comms. "Earth needs to know what happened here," he said firmly. "If we can get our leaders to see the Council for what they really are, we might have a chance at uniting humanity against them." Samantha Lewis nodded, though her expression remained grim. "And the survivors," she added. "There are still Valorants out there, people who lost everything because of the Council. We owe it to them to keep fighting." With Ryan Carter monitoring their damaged ships and guiding them toward safety, the group plotted their next move. They decided to head for Earth, hoping to rally both political and public support. As they approached human-controlled space, Emily drafted a message detailing everything they had uncovered: the Council's betrayal, their lies, and the true purpose behind the attack on the Valorans. She included data from the crystal, evidence of the Council's greed and corruption. When they arrived, the response was overwhelming. News of the rebels' actions spread quickly, sparking outrage across the planet. Protesters filled the streets, demanding accountability from Earth's leaders. Even those who had once feared retaliation from the Council now called for justice. For the first time, humanity stood united, not just against an external threat, but against tyranny itself. Earth's government, pressured by public opinion, issued a formal condemnation of the Council's actions. Diplomatic channels reopened, and emissaries reached out to surviving Valoran refugees. Slowly but surely, alliances began to form. The rebels became symbols of hope, their names spoken with reverence. Yet for Jake, the victory brought little peace. He stood alone on the bridge of his ship one night, staring at the stars. The faces of those they had lost haunted him. Alex, the young recruit, the countless Valorans who had trusted humanity only to be betrayed. He clenched his fists, vowing silently to honor their memory. Emily joined him moments later, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "No one could have asked for more." Jake didn't answer right away. Finally, he turned to her, his voice steady but heavy with resolve. "This isn't over," he said. "Not until the Council answers for what they've done." She nodded. "Then we keep going. Together." As the rebels prepared for what lay ahead, Their bond grew stronger. They weren't just fighters anymore. They were defenders of something greater. Humanity had taken its first step toward reclaiming its place among the stars. And though the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, they faced it without fear. Months passed, and the galaxy began to heal. The energy pulse had crippled the Galactic War Council's forces, leaving them vulnerable for the first time in decades. Survivors of the Valoran genocide emerged from hiding, their numbers smaller than anyone had hoped, but their spirit unbroken. Together with humanity, they began rebuilding what had been lost. Old alliances were rekindled, and new ones formed as planets once loyal to the Council started questioning its authority. Jake Robinson stood on the bridge of a newly constructed vessel, his eyes scanning the horizon of stars. The ship was sleek and powerful, built with technology shared by the Valorans who had survived. It wasn't just a symbol of hope, it was a promise. Humanity would no longer stand idly by while tyrants ruled the galaxy. They would protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Emily Dawson walked up beside him, her expression thoughtful. "We've come a long way," she said, breaking the silence. Her voice carried a mix of pride and caution. "But we can't let our guard down. The Council isn't gone. They're just waiting." Jake nodded, his gaze fixed on the vast expanse before them. "I know," he replied. "And when they come back, we'll be ready." The team had grown since their early days as rebels. Ryan Carter now led a group of engineers working to develop weapons and defenses based on Valoran designs. Samantha Lewis trained new pilots, teaching them the skills she'd honed during countless battles. Daniel Ford served as an ambassador, traveling between worlds to strengthen ties and gather support. Each of them played a vital role in shaping a brighter future. Yet Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He thought about the lives lost, the friends, the allies, the innocent people caught in the crossfire. Every decision he made now felt heavier, knowing how much was at stake. But Emily reminded him often that leadership wasn't about perfection. It was about doing what was right, even when it was hard. One evening, as the crew gathered for a rare moment of rest, Ryan approached Jake with a small device in hand. "Thought you might want this," he said, holding out the crystal they had used to disable the Council's fleet. Its glow had faded completely, leaving it dull and lifeless. "It's not much to look at anymore, but it's part of our story." Jake took the crystal carefully, turning it over in his hands. "It's more than that," he said quietly. "It's proof that even the smallest spark can light up the darkest sky." The rebels set course for uncharted space, determined to explore what lay beyond the borders of known systems. There were still mysteries to uncover, dangers to face, and lessons to learn. But for the first time in years, there was also hope. Hope that the mistakes of the past wouldn't be repeated. Hope that peace could one day replace war. As the ship sailed into the unknown, Jake whispered a silent promise, to himself, to his crew, and to everyone counting on them. No matter how vast the universe or how daunting the challenges ahead, humanity would stand firm. They would fight for justice, for freedom, and for the belief that even in the darkest times, courage and unity could change the course of history. And so, under a blanket of stars, Earth's defenders moved forward, not as conquerors, but as guardians of a better tomorrow.